steps that we'll talk about are really just around what's going to go forward in the regional planning. And I think one of the things that we have talked about and have had a lot of discussion and questions around is, oh, sorry, I need to flip my, can you flip me because I'm not going to be able to flip very good. Thanks. So is the whole issue around how does the regional plan roll up into the state plan, and then below that how the local plan rolls up into the regional plan. So what we're going to talk about just briefly here is what is the process overview. And so what we've done, of course, as you all know, and we've talked about this and mentioned this before, is the state created a vision. And while it's certainly going to guide WIOA, the leadership team that came together adopted the vision for the entire state for workforce programs. And just a reminder, it's the business-driven talent solutions that integrate education, workforce, and economic development across systems to provide businesses, individuals, and communities with the opportunity to prosper and contribute to growing the state's economy. And so as you can see, that vision is really a large encompassing vision. And then from that state leadership team did the guiding principles, and we've talked about those before, so I won't really go over those again. Mark, next slide. And then how that flows down from the vision to the principles are strategies. And these strategies are governing the state unified plan, but they're also going to govern the regional plans and the local plans. And those strategies are just, of course, improving our regional partnerships, ensuring that they're employer-driven, how we're going to expand our career pathway opportunities, how are we going to work on expanding career services and making sure that we're serving folks that are facing multiple barriers. And then we certainly want to make sure that we're getting the word out to our customers and to employers so that they know what services are available, and then how do we really look at the whole data structure and use data in a more proactive way and make sure that the data is driving all of our services and our opportunities around creating training for people that need employment. There are some major steps that we're going to take in the planning process, and some of you probably have already begun or are included in regional teams, and we'll talk a little bit more about if you still want to get involved, there's opportunities. Certainly this is not the end-all be-all. But as I mentioned before, it's going to be a data-driven approach. And we have had an interagency team of the Department of Employment Security, Community College Board, and us, and IDES, if I didn't say that yet, working on combining the data, verifying or validating that the economic development regions are still in place, looking at demographic data and the population, and that information is going to be given to the regional teams to help them determine and prioritize not just target industries, but also the services that they're going to need to provide, one, to meet the jobs in that region, but also to serve their population. The next step, and this is going to occur now, and we will also have this accessible on the WIOA implementation site, is a readiness assessment. And Mayer, who is our consulting firm that's been hired to facilitate, and I want to stress that, facilitate our regional planning process, will walk regional teams through this assessment exercise. And that will occur and is occurring probably right now in some regions. And then we'll take that assessment, and then we'll start to analyze and break down what does that mean in next week's meetings. But again, if if for some reason you weren't able to participate next week, or you haven't had the opportunity to get involved, those self-assessments will be available, and you can work within your regional teams as you move forward. So, and again, these teams are built around the 10 economic development regions, and it's looking at, do you understand what your data is? What are the services that you have? Do you feel that you're ready to create programs, or what programs do you have available that will influence and meet the target industries in your area? Mark? And from the data and the self-assessment, we're going to begin to build the regional action plans. And so in January, when we all come back from the holiday, your regional teams are really going to start coming together to develop action-oriented plans. And the planning process, and I can't stress this enough, is going to be ongoing. A plan is not a plan and it's the end-all be-all. And you've heard us say this many times before. Planning is a process, and it's an ongoing process. What we're doing right now is just setting the foundation through the provision of the data and the self-assessment. We're looking right now at, we haven't heard differently, but right now the Unified Plan is still continuing to be due on March 3rd of 2016, and the regional plans won't have to be in place until July of 2016. The local workforce area plans, those are really going to be the nuts and bolts of how you implement your regional strategies on the ground level. And those are not just workforce, one-stop, Title 1B that helps create those local area plans, but it's a joint partnership of certainly IDES, voc rehab, and adult education, but other partners that need to be involved in developing that plan. And again, that would be, since the local area plan must be incorporated into the regional plan, we're looking at the effective date of that for July 1st of 2016. And I think it's also important just to reiterate that we're certainly not requiring the submission of 2 plans. So the local area plan will just be an extension of the regional plan. Now we're going to get into the frequently asked questions. And why does that look like that? Anyway, this was one of the first questions, and I think certainly we're trying to address that through this webinar today and through other webinars, and want to continue to reiterate it where possible, but there's confusion among partners about the whole process and what exactly is the purpose of the December meetings and the work that might follow. And I think just by giving you that brief overview of the planning process, hopefully that's starting to build or provide an understanding of what the expectation is around regional planning, and then helps you think about what is your role in the regional planning efforts. And the goal, as you can see, is that we want to assist multiple partner teams in each of the regions in developing a plan that is aligned to WIOA and as importantly, the state's vision and principles that we've adopted for Illinois' workforce services. And these plans, as you know, I'm sure we've hounded enough, but it's certainly important that integration of workforce, economic development, and education is the top priority. We want to make sure that we're doing that across partner programs, and that those integration efforts are built around and founded on industry sector partnerships that not only provide jobs to our customers, but increase a business's competitiveness. And we mentioned just briefly what's going to happen in the December meetings, but that will be the data analysis and sort of the kickoff of the regional teams. And then, again, we're making sure that the team is, that the teams are continuing to work on their regional plans after December into January and beyond. And Mayor will be able to provide technical assistance to support the regional teams through March. And again, we're expected to finalize regional/local plans by July 2016. Thanks, Mark. Are you going to move me? The next question that we've seen and want to address are what are the specific expectations in the regional planning process? Well, WIOA requires that we set a framework for developing these regional plans and doing it in consultation with workforce boards and chief elected officials. And as membership of the LWIBs include businesses, labor, apprenticeships, and other partners, each member of the board is responsible to participate in the development of those plans. And one of the frameworks, part of the framework, of course, is us providing technical assistance and labor market data, which we're starting to do through the regional planning process, and then also provide guidance and help you with, through the technical assistance efforts, on what are your service strategies, what are your occupations, how do you pool funds. So it's really broader than just training and services, but how do we deliver those services? And that'll be what will be addressed through your local plans as well as your MOU agreements and cost-sharing agreements. Thank you. We had a question on how the efforts that we did earlier this year in partnership with the Community College Board, how that project will fit into what we're doing now. And certainly that plan is being finalized. It will be available on the Illinois Community College's website as soon as it's released. We will be getting that out to everyone. And those recommendations in there should be taken into consideration as you're developing your regional plans. So you're really going to use that data, or those recommendations rather, and look at them in light of the data that you've got and what your service strategies are. We had some questions around what are the roles and responsibilities of the regional team point of contact. We did ask that each of the regional teams think about and appoint a regional point of contact. And that's really about information flow, making sure that you're all getting the right information and the same information. So they're really a logistical and communications liaison between mayor and the regional team. We're really stressing that this is a regionally driven process. So amongst your regional teams, if you notice that there is a particular partner group that isn't at the table, how do we get them at the table? It's the responsibility of the team members, to invite them. And again, that's the second question. The third question on there is really the same as the second, but it is the responsibility of all of the team members to invite core partner programs as well as just at large. And we're seeing in the registrations, by the way, where we're on this team concept, a good variety of partner groups. I've seen, from K through 12 all the way through universities. While I'm on that topic, though, we would like to see more businesses engaged in next week's session, as well as, going forward. Mark? Here's the responsibilities of the regional teams. Some will attend the meetings this next week. Some will participate in the statewide summit. Please don't feel like if you're not participating in next week's meeting or the follow-up summit that you're not involved in the team. The teams can be, as large as you need them to be. It's just, of course, for logistical purposes, we're thinking around, you all coming to a consensus on who would come to those meetings. And then, of course, you're going to be starting to work together if you haven't already, and I know that some of you from talking to you have met a couple of times. You're already doing some work, and then that work that you've done so far will, of course, be discussed next week and you'll start building on it. Did you click? Oh, yeah, sorry, go ahead. It's a duplicate slide, sorry. This is also, again, talked a lot about this internally, and we do understand that you might not know some of your regional team members. I would certainly reach out to mayor and mayor around, what you guys can do as far as getting to know you exercises. We certainly want to encourage new partnerships. So whatever we can do to help facilitate that, we're certainly available and willing to do. The initial regional team members were identified by the state level WIOA interagency team, and it was just really to get the process started. And each of the core partner agencies identified their own representatives. And the final team members, those are not the final team members, and I can't stress that enough. It's certainly up to each region to identify additional members of the team. Is there a size limit on teams? And this is really about the meeting next week. It's not certainly indicative of what you're doing in your larger regional planning process, but there isn't any formal size limit. You just need to strike a balance and make sure that you've got diverse partner representation and that you feel among your team that it's manageable. And what we did ask for the December meeting is that your groups be no larger than 25. We do have a couple of regions that are, and that's okay. So I don't want anybody that, if you know that your regional team that you're bringing next week is larger than that, it's fine. We had a question on adult ed programs and community-based colleges. That, again, is up to the regional planning team to determine the composition. And also, if you haven't been, if you're a partner group that isn't right now involved and you want to be, certainly reach out to the point of contact, and we'll be providing those in a minute to express your interest in participating. Here's what we're hoping to get out of the December meetings that will set the stage going forward. So we talked a little bit about the self-assessment. We're also going to be conducting a SWOT analysis. There's going to be several exercises around data analysis at that one-day meeting. So you'll be exploring what is your demand data that's being presented to you, what's your supply data, and around industry sectors. And we're going to ask just for that day, for purposes of planning, that you do select one sector to focus on for the day to just begin getting used to and accustomed to the regional planning process and to start moving the ball forward. And the agenda for that December meeting is going to be available on the WIOA implementation page. Here's the regional team roster, and I'm sorry that it's not very clear on the slide, but it is in the FAQ that you can download in the corner. And you can see that we've provided the email of each of the point of contacts. We've also done the local workforce area that you're in and what region it's connected to. We can also, if you need it, make available what counties are in those economic development regions, and we certainly will do so. Here are the regional meetings, just as a reminder. This has been widespread, but we're going to be in Effingham next Wednesday, Bloomington on Thursday, and then in Moraine Valley on Friday. And we still haven't determined the summit, but we will be updating the slide to sometime now in mid-February. One, we want to give you all time to really work between now and February too. There's been some, quite honestly, some conflicts in scheduling. I talked a little bit more in detail earlier about what the agenda is, but this is just sort of an overview. There will be 2 data-related plenary sessions. Then we're going to do 3 breakout sessions that will include the self-assessment and debrief, the demand-side data analysis, and then at the end of the day, we'll do a report out. So it is going to be a very packed agenda that day. So be a lot of work done. And then for your next steps, I would encourage you, again, if you're not part of a regional team and you want to be, reach out to your point of contact and make sure that you're participating in and supporting the ongoing regional planning process. So I guess that's kind of a no-brainer, isn't it? I didn't address sort of the logistical questions on the FAQ, but there are some, like, you know, where do you find information, what's the regional meeting date. So those are, again, available here for you to download, as well as they'll be on the WIOA implementation page. So that was a pretty brief overview. I'm certainly open now to take questions, and if we don't have the answers, we'll get back to everyone. So I guess we can open the phone line, or you can put questions in the chat pod. Are there questions already there that we haven't answered? Okay. So please feel free to unmute yourself and ask questions if you'd like to. Wondering if we should send this over. Yes, we have a question if the self-assessment survey should be sent to Workforce Board business reps, even if they can't make it. Absolutely. I would, for anybody that you feel needs to be engaged in the regional planning process, please send the self-assessment to them. Because even though they might not participate next week, they're certainly going to be participating as we move forward. See somebody typing, so sorry if we're kind of having some down space. I'm sorry, what? Yeah, please, again, feel free to jump on the phone and ask if you'd like to, rather than typing in the chat pod. Pardon?
Lisa,
put those up. Yeah,
Lisa,
you can, if you want to.
Lisa?
Yes.
It's LaVon.
Hey, LaVon.
The results of the, there's going to be a report out and everything at the meetings next week. Will we receive any feedback or anything before the February statewide meeting? Or
so you're asking, just so I'm clear, if there will be a summary written up of the December meetings. My understanding is, yes, there will be a summary that will be done and available before the February meeting.
I think that could be, thank you, that'd be useful to people, as they are working, not waiting till February. Okay, yeah. Thanks.
And there's a question about using the unified plan to inform the state plan, and actually that's the other way around. We're using the regional and local plans to inform the state plan. So even though yours will be due after ours, we're going to take the strategies that you're developing December, January, and February to begin crafting our state plan. And LaVon, somebody's asking about the release date of the Integrated Education and Workforce Plan.
I can't answer that at this time.
Okay, we're not sure, but as soon as it's released, we'll get it distributed widely.
It will.
How many participants are expected at the session, and how many are registered thus far? Well, at Effingham, we have 90 participants registered so far. Bloomington is around 75 to 80, and I believe the Moraine Valley is also around 75 to 80. We are actually, because we're providing lunch, are going to have to kind of cut off the registration by close of business tomorrow so we can get an accurate lunch count. But certainly feel free to reach out to your points of contact about participating in next week's meeting. Yes, there will be a template to use for planning. I'm hoping that it'll be at next week's meeting. I have not heard otherwise, so we're anticipating that that's when it will be given out. And again, please feel free to talk. I'm sorry, what? Mark is asking if I want to cover anything on either the regional planning FAQ or the planning process. I really just did a high-level overview for that, but I think I touched on all the salient points. But certainly feel free to read it in depth, and then if you do have additional questions, you should ask. One of the questions, Laura just pointed out that we should probably also let you know that, again, the agenda will be available on the WIOA Implementation page, and yes, we will be doing summaries. So I forgot we had that on the FAQ. Thanks for reminding me, Laura. Let's see. There's been collaboration of the past. Here's another question and statement. There's been collaboration over the past few years involving 4 of our counties in the region and the EDCs. A CEDS strategy was formed that covers most of the components. I would imagine that strategy could be used rather than reinventing the wheel. Absolutely. And that's part of the self-assessment is what are your current strategies out there that are working, and how are you going to continue to use those strategies, potentially expand those strategies, or not just expand, but are there new partners that can come to the table to support those strategies? That's an excellent point. Thanks, Steve. We'll wait a couple more minutes to see if there's any other questions.
While we're waiting, I just want to reiterate, we had the message on the opening welcome screen. This will be our last webinar, Wednesday webinar for this year due to the regional meetings next week. The following week are some training sessions set up for a couple days that week for various partners. And then the final 2 weeks of the month are the holiday weeks, so we feel, with probably a lot of people taking some time off and wrapping things up at the end of the year, we wouldn't have as good a participation. So don't plan on attending any of these the next 4 weeks, but we do have plans and in discussions with other agency partners as well as within ourselves to come up with topics beginning back with the January 6th Wednesday. So just because we're gone for a few weeks doesn't mean we're gone for good. We'll be back and providing additional information, and I'm sure we'll highlight some of these meetings that occurred in December at those. We also are already starting to issue some new policy, and so we will want to cover those as they come out, additional ones come out in the future. So just wanted to remind everyone that we will be up from the webinars for the next 4 weeks.
And a couple of clarifications to Mark's comments. The training sessions that are the following week from the regional meetings are around MOU guidelines. And, of course, I'm blanking on what the other one is. It might be infrastructure. But if Bethany, if you're on here and want to chime in, that would be great. So they're really about the mechanics of the service delivery, our service delivery efforts. And then the policy, we actually are in the edit stage and the final proof stage on the board certification policy. So Julio's in Springfield this week, so I anticipate locking him in a room so he can approve it and we can get it out.
And that includes the
And that includes the bylaws template that many of you asked for. So thanks, Laura, for mentioning that. And then the other policy that we're very, very close on, and Mark is working frantically to get out, is the eligible training provider policy. And then if there's any of our work group members on the phone, he'll be sending that to you all for comment. We were certainly excited to see in the TEGL that we got an extension through the end of June.
Yeah, we did send an email out. Julio sent an email out last week or the week before, I can't remember, outlining what was in that TEGL that extended the period from December 31st to June 30th. But the new policy, it'll be an update of that transition policy number 7 on the eligible training provider list. And it will also address registered apprenticeships as well as the ability to update information on current programs and add new programs. We've got the majority of the language finalized. What we really have to work on is getting all those changes into IWDF so that the performance data especially can be tracked, because that's a requirement under WIOA that we get that. And you'll see in the language, without going any further into that, you'll see in the language of the policy how we're addressing that at the beginning of this, and it'll be a process going forward of gathering more and more information to meet WIOA requirements. So I'll be at the Illinois Workforce Partnership meeting tomorrow discussing that. Certainly if there's anyone else on the line that does not participate in the IWP, if you want to contact me directly with questions regarding that, I'd say wait a few days first so we can get this out to everyone in their hands, get some comments back in case there's some additional changes to address any of IWP or the work group. So, if you're not part of either of those groups, I would wait until next week at least to email me so that we have some final answers on what is actually going to go to Julio and be finalized and issued hopefully early next week.
Hey, Mark, this is LaVon.
Yeah.
Did you say Julio sent out an email outlining the changes from December 31st to June 30th?
Yes, and I don't, because I'm not involved in those emails, I don't know who the group was.
Okay.
Hopefully you guys were included in that. But it should have been the normal email grouping.
Yes, it was.
That goes out with policy. But I know as we have transitioned into doing automated information messages through Illinois WorkNet and our policy portal, sometimes people have dropped off of our email list because they've been added on that one and don't want to receive that email twice. But since this was a kind of just an informative email, I don't think we thought about adding some other individuals on that email. So if you did not get that, we apologize, and we can certainly send that out. I'll get it out to you, LaVon, but anyone else,
Thanks.
if anyone else needs that information, really that's all it was to inform everyone that the date changed from December 31st to June 30th, and the policy would be coming out. There was no real detail on that. It said we would be addressing the apprenticeships and the new programs. So you didn't really miss a whole lot in the sense that we didn't issue, any kind of guidance in that email. We just wanted to let everyone know we were going to extend that date.
Okay, so if sorry for the little, we digress, but it was important, I think, to get some of this information out to you all of what's up and coming. So if there aren't any more questions related to the FAQ or the planning process, I think we're going to sign off now, and we will have a happy holiday, everyone, and I will see many of you next week. Thanks.
Thank you.